White on white, translucent black capes back on the rack. Bela Lugos is dead, the bats have left the bell tower. The victims have been bled, red velvet lines, the black box. Bela Lugos is dead.
Some of the documents showing the white races of Europe, and we can get a better perspective as to who the Moors were fighting. These are the albinos and the beasts of Europe, and the Moors were fighting these people for hundreds of years prior to the so-called transatlantic slave trade. And one interesting thing I wanted to show you is that when you look at these beasts and albinos and how they have achieved what they've been able to achieve in just a few hundred years, keeping in mind that they were considered wild men just a few hundred years ago, and they had no last names. Many of them didn't even have first names. And I wanted to show you this because I found this very interesting. If you see here the wild men, and you look at the clothing that the people are wearing to the left, you can see here they're wearing this clothing to cover up their hairy bodies. So I found that very interesting. Something else I found in the British Library was one of the oldest genealogy charts, one of the first ones made for white people. And as you can see at the bottom of that genealogy chart, you see two wild men. So they're showing that their ancestry comes from the caveman. So that should give you something to think about, considering that just a few hundred years later, today we have people like the Queen of England who claim to be of the royal bloodline of Egyptians and Cushites who ruled the earth. They even found the remains of a boy who was buried at Stonehenge in Europe. He was buried in Europe, but he actually came from the Mediterranean Sea in Africa. And he came to Europe 3,500 years ago. So that's in 1500 BC. So we're told that the Moors arrived in Europe in 700 AD. But here we have black people out of Africa coming to Europe over 2,000 years before the Moors arrived in 700 AD.
He said, one early summer's morning in the Forest of Dean, and it was approximately 4:30 a.m. and I was out with my dogs, and it was a good hour before I encountered another person. While I was out there, I became aware of a large black dog that was watching me from the tree line. And yes, it probably was just a dog, but what was it doing out there on its own, and at that time, with no owner around? Now, it didn't approach me, it just sat there, in the tree line, watching me as I walked. And it watched me for long enough that I was able to take a photo on my phone. There was something strange about this incident that I just cannot explain. Not so long after this event, I was out early again in the woods near Drybrook in the forest, and I was doing my usual dog walk and moving at a steady pace. It was just getting light, and as I was walking, and yes, it had been a full moon the night before, I was walking on the forest track when I came across a man dressed only in his boxer shorts and completely covered in mud. And he was fast asleep, or appeared to be fast asleep, on the path. He was just laying there in the dirt. The dog I was with at the time, which was an elderly staffy, wouldn't go near him, and I couldn't help thinking about the classic werewolf scenario, where the person wakes up in the woods with no memory of what happened. And we promptly left the area. But as you know, this is not the only strange experience that I've had down there. Now, there have been many historical and more recent reports of mysterious creatures living in the woods, especially around the Parkland area. One notable example is the Beast of Dean, which was also given the name the Moose Pig. Now, long before the reintroduction of wild boar in the area, an animal said to resemble a boar, but large enough to crush hedges and make trees fall, lurked in the depths of the woods, and it could be heard as it thundered through the foliage. Now, there are also numerous cases of missing people and unidentified remains being discovered within the forest, and very strange remains at that. One, as you can see pictured here, is a male, and his remains were found on the edge of the forest and on the edge of the road, and he is described as 45 to 65 years of age. He's described as white European and was around 183 centimetres in height, and he would have been a medium build. Now, there is no clue to this man's identity or how he passed away. Police are unsure if this is a natural death. He was wearing green khaki tweed trousers, a light shirt, brown shoes and glasses. He did have a number of personal items with him when he was found, and the newspaper stated he had his glasses, his leather wallet, some scissors, a nail file, and the remains of his clothing. Now, a small photo album with the photos was destroyed, and he had a pen and some pre-decimal coins, which suggests this was before the 1970s. Now, another body of a hitchhiker or a rambler, now this is supposition on behalf of the police, another male who was aged anywhere between 25 and 60, has been found in the forested area close to Cinderford. The police said he is of white European heritage and around 178 centimetres tall with a medium build. He is believed to have been dead for around 2 to 2.5 years. He may be a hiker or a rambler, and the police are struggling to identify this man, and they have no idea how he died or why he was in the forest in the first place. He was said to be wearing a green jumper, grey slacks, a striped shirt and brown shoes, and his possessions included a penknife with M. Tucker scratched into the handle, a map, a plastic bottle of lemon squash, some scissors and toothpaste, electric razor, insect repellent, magnifying glass, toothbrushes, travelling alarm clock, and a rucksack. Now the strange is fine today, I should think, unless you know different, are the bones that were found on a public footpath close to the River Severn. A training shoe with a sock with the remains of bones inside it had been found on a public footpath adjacent to the River Severn at Odders Chapel. Now, most of the missing that I've spoke about tonight and another 2 cases are all around the Odders Chapel area. Now, the police can only identify the gender of the remains as having nothing to explain this mysterious fact. Now, the trainer was a blue Van Vision skate shoe. The model of trainer was first manufactured in the US, and it was also sold in the UK from 2006 onwards. Now, police do not know the age of the male or any description. All they have is the shoe, the sock, and the bones within it. Now, also in the area are a number of very strange creatures being reported, dog-like canine-type creatures. We have reports of whoops and howls, and anything invisible stalkers, that thing that you hear me say where something's stalking them within the trees, and as they stop, it stops, and as they take a step, it takes a step. Now, a gentleman who's made to work made this report, and his name was Simon Austin, and he didn't mind being named, and he's from Colford near Gloucestershire, and he says, I've lived here all my life, and I never knew where to report my encounter to, until a friend of mine told me about Mark Farnell, a friend of his who follows sightings of unexplained creatures like Bigfoot. Now, Mark Farnell is a member of BBR, and he was a witness to a creature in Charlton when he was a teenage boy. Simon says, I worked in Charlton one morning, and I woke at about 5 a.m, and I got myself ready for work. And as I was driving down Scowls Road, heading for the A4136 highway, I was keeping in my mind that there was very little traffic, and I approached a left turn junction near Stowfield Quarry at the point my car was hit by a small log or a branch. In shock, I looked to my right from where the sound emitted from, and what I saw was frightening to say the least. I witnessed this creature sprinting towards me on all fours. At least that's what I thought until it came closer. It was running on 2 legs, but very low to the floor. It resembled a dog, but it had a long snout, but it was much taller and very thin. I accelerated off as fast as I could. This creature was black in colour and had frosted eyes. I have never seen anything like this before, and I hope I don't see it again.
On the ground, there was a footprint. A big footprint. So I was hooked from that moment on. I started spending all the time I could spare searching for the beast, and I spent time I couldn't spare. That's how I lost my job and my friends.
So sad.
Well, I didn't tell it so you could cry in your sprouts or whatever that is, darling. I'm telling it so that your father won't make the same mistake.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Dr. Wrightwood, but there's a big difference between your story and mine.
Not as big as you think.
Maybe even bigger.
No, you're kidding yourself. I remember what you told me when you came into my shop. Bigfoot can come live with us. We'll accept the responsibility. Can you imagine what a Bigfoot would do to your home? Yeah, well, I can. You're good people. I'll say this once. I'll say it simple. And I hope to God, for your sakes, you all listen. There are no abominable snowmen. There are no...
Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. The thing that hath been, it is which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, See, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 16. There is no end of all the people, even of all that hath been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in them. Surely this is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Psalms 92, verses 5 through 7. O Lord, how great are thy works, and how thy thoughts are very deep. A brutish man knoweth not, neither doth a fool understand this. When the wicked spring as the grass, and when all the workers of iniquity do flourish, is that they shall be destroyed forever. Should we truly be surprised today if there are beastmen, giants, or fallen angels here? You can choose to take this seriously, or you can go cover your eyes and sit in the corner. The choice is your own. Regardless, it will come to pass, because the limit has been reached. The pot has been boiling for far too long, and retribution is at hand. There are only two sides, the side of information and growth, and everything else. But let me ask you something. If these books are in fact real, and these creatures are still around today, who benefits the most from you not reading them?
So you take a look at the land of many waters. Where do you see the vast majority of these bones that are found? Now, of course, this is, saying there's only 1,000. Maybe there's only 1,000 plus that they're admitting to, but none of us have any idea how many, giant skeleton bones they found. But take a look at where the concentration of the bones were found. Right there in the area where it says, or where it describes a place that looks just like the land of many waters. They talk about the Great Lakes being bigger. They talk about a concentration of many of the of these giants fighting, as one of the natives fighting to control this land. And then you find a vast majority of these skeletons in that general area. So I don't think it's too big of a stretch to think that these things were occurring. The battles of the giants. Og was here. Nimrod was here. The Watchers were here. Noah was here. Enoch was here. That whole line. Cain was here. It would all make so much sense that all would fit right there in this general area, because that's where you find most of these bodies at. The land fits the description of a place where people were going to fight over. The bodies that are being found fits this area right here. Let's take a look at the bottom. This is a map of all of the 1,000+ giant bodies found in North America since the early 1800s. The Iroquois, the Hurons, and the Omahas, and many of other North American Indians all speak of giant men who once lived and roamed in the territories of their forefathers. Newspaper accounts, town and county histories, letters, scientific journals, diaries, photos, and Smithsonian ethnology reports have carefully documented this. These skeletons have been reported from coast to coast with strange anatomic anomalies, such as double rows of teeth, jawbones so large as to fit over the face of the finder, and elongated skulls, documented in virtually every state. So you're finding these bodies all over the place. But you see where the concentration is. Right here.
Nestled in the mountains between France and Spain, there is a semi-isolated population of native European people that have long puzzled anthropologists, linguists, and historians because although they are Caucasoid, they do not fit in with the rest of the European populations. Their language, for example, is distinctly unique in Europe and not related to any other Indo-European language. But that's not the only thing that's unique about the Basque. The Basque turned out to also be unique in terms of blood. Prior to the advent of genetic research tools, investigators used the ABO blood groups to study the relationships between human populations as well as their migration patterns. Each person's blood is one of four major types: A, B, AB, or O. Blood types are determined by the types of antigens on the blood cells. Antigens are proteins on the surface of blood cells that can cause a response from the immune system. The Rh factor is a type of protein on the surface of red blood cells. Most people are Rh positive. Those who do not have the Rh factor are Rh negative, which compromises about 15% of the world's population, but appears in much higher percentage among the Basque, which as a population contain among the highest levels of Rh negative blood in the world. The Basque people currently inhabit the area surrounding the Pyrenees Mountains, where Cro-Magnon man left behind some of his and her most famous artwork over 30,000 years ago. But exactly who are the Basque and where did they come from? I decided that a great place to find out is the University of Nevada, since it houses the Center for Basque Studies. This organization is primarily a research center that conducts and publishes on Basque-related topics such as anthropology, history, cultural studies, etc. Here's what they had to say about the Basque people and their origins, and this comes from their website's frequently asked questions. Question: where did the Basque come from? No one knows exactly where the Basque come from. Some say they have lived in the area since Cro-Magnon man first roamed Europe. Some say they are descended from the original Iberians. More fanciful theories exist as well. One is that the Basques are the descendants of the survivors of Atlantis. Question: where did the Basque language come from? Just as no one is sure about the origins of the Basques themselves, linguists are not in agreement over the origins of Euskara, the Basque language, either. When asked, I found that the majority of the Basque people themselves maintain that they came from Atlantica, a powerful maritime nation that sank into the Atlantic Ocean after a terrible cataclysm, and from which a few survivors reached the Bay of Biscay and the Pyrenees Mountains. This, they say, is not just mythology, but their true pre-European ancestry. There's another ancient people who claim racial lineage from the mythical Atlanteans. The Berbers are currently located geographically around Mount Atlas, but inhabit much of North Africa long before the Arabs arrived. The Berbers are considered the aboriginals of the area, and their origins beyond that are not officially known. Here we have a population, many of whom have blue eyes and light hair, living in Northwest Africa of all places, and among some of the blonde tribes still living near the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, the percentage of Rh negative blood can reach 40%. Now keep in mind, that's not the general national average, but restricted to certain local tribes. Anthropologists, for the most part, dismissed them for many years because they didn't fit well with the out-of-Africa paradigm. So it was presumed that they had migrated from somewhere in Europe. However, that theory has been abandoned with the current understanding of genetics. Scientists now accept the genetic evidence that concludes Berbers are an indigenous people, which they believe are descended from native Upper Paleolithic Cro-Magnon types going straight back into the Pleistocene or Ice Age. This should make it easier to understand why the oldest remains found in Egypt, nicknamed Ginger, and currently on display in the British Museum, has naturally red hair. This is pre-dynastic, which means before the pharaohs and before the accepted dating of the pyramids. I can go on for quite some time about blonde and red-headed mummies and blue-eyed statues, but I'll save that for a future video on ancient Egypt. For now, let us turn to another population native to an island off of the African coast who also left mummies and pyramids. The Guanches were very tall, powerfully built, blonde and red-haired indigenous natives of the Canary Islands, specifically the island of Tenerife. To date, there is still no evidence that the Guanches had any knowledge of maritime technology, which begs the question, how did they get there? This isolation allowed the Guanche to maintain a racial exclusivity until the time of the Spanish conquest. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, 11th edition, concerning the ethnic origins and racial identity of the Canary Island Guanches, and I quote, "The Guanches are thought to have been of Cro-Magnon origin, with blue or gray eyes and blondish hair." Madame Blavatsky, foundress of the Theosophical Society, points out that the genetic relations between these three populations, well over 100 years before our modern understanding of DNA, and I quote, she says, "If then the Basque and Cro-Magnon cavemen are of the same race as the Canaries Guanches, it follows that the former are also allied to the Aborigines of America. The Atlantean affinities of the three types becomes patent." My name is Robert Sepper. I'm a formally educated anthropologist and now author, and I'd like to invite you to explore some fascinating mysteries with me, which for the most part have eluded any serious consideration in mainstream academia.
Now, what happened to the Atlantean is one of the great riddles of history. The old tradition tells us that the tragedy was due to the fact that the mental nature of man is twofold in structure. Man has a positive and negative polarized mind. And the negative polarity of the mind is what we would call physical mind or mortal mind. And the positive pole is divine mind or spiritual mind. These two poles have to finally be balanced. But in the Atlantean, they were not balanced. The Atlantean, emerging through his own corporeal structure, but still locked largely within body, produced the progenitor of what we call materialism. He was strong, he was skillful, he was keen, but he lacked reflective power. He lacked the power sufficiently generated to enable him to estimate the moral and ethical values of existence. In his earlier period, this moral, ethical, spiritual directive was provided by the adept school. But in the middle period of Atlantis, the time came for the individual to pass out of the protection of the adept system and toward self-determinism. In other words, there comes always the problem in parental guidance as to when guidance must stop. If guidance is prolonged beyond need, the child is damaged. And the need for the Atlantean to become self-responsible as a moral agent forced the gradual retiring of the shepherd king or the initiate teacher, the great sages, who retired from society into their schools, which means that they retired from embodiment. They were no longer born as Atlanteans, becoming part of the race. They retired into their own higher or natural forms and became teachers. As teachers, they were available but had to be solicited. The disciples would still seek them, but
God ignores the line of Cain. Cain, the forefather of Lamech, who was marked with leprous whiteness. For God had said, whoever slays Cain shall have vengeance visited upon their head sevenfold. Again, let's read that part again. Cain, the forefather of Lamech, who was marked with leprous whiteness. For God had said, whoever slays Cain shall have vengeance visited upon their head sevenfold. Okay? As Abel's blood cried from the ground, same leprous whiteness was made a sign that was visited upon all of Cain's descendants, as it was their inheritance for 7 generations.
Of Babylon Marduk is associated with the planet Jupiter, the color white, and the metal tin. These characteristics of Sumerian gods are eerily familiar to the line of the fallen through their association with luminaries or metals. For we know it was the fallen who taught men how to fashion metal into weapons and make war. And the book of Enoch clearly makes a point to connect the imprisonment of the fallen with the wandering suspension of the luminaries. As well as the Babylonians, the Greek had their own gang of hybrid gods, also resembling the functions and features of the Mesopotamians. If we just take the understood history of the Greek people through their own religious mythology, they will tell you themselves without equivocation that they are indeed descended from gods and titans. the first man to explore deeply into the poles, says something that completely contradicts popular science. Quotes from the memoirs of Admiral Byrd.
The following is a reading of the official transcripts of Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd's flight logs recording during and shortly after his pioneering journey deep into the unknown regions of the Arctic North Pole on the 19th of February 1947. 0815 hours. Radio check with base camp, situation normal. 0830 hours. Turbulence encountered again. Increase altitude to 2,900 feet, smooth flight conditions again. 0910 hours. Vast ice and snow below. Note coloration of a yellowish nature and dispersed in a linear pattern. Altering course for better examination of this color pattern below. Note reddish or purple color also. Circle this area 2 full turns and return to assigned compass heading. Position check made again to base camp and relay information concerning colorations in the ice and snow below. 0910 hours. Both magnetic and gyro compasses beginning to gyrate and wobble. We are unable to hold our heading by instrumentation. Take bearing with sun compass, yet all seems well. The controls are seemingly slow to respond and have sluggish quality, but there is no indication of icing. 0915 hours. In the distance is what appears to be mountains. 0949 hours. 29 minutes elapsed flight time from the first sighting of the mountains. It is no illusion. They are mountains and are consisting of a small range that I have never seen before. 0955 hours. Altitude changed to 2,950 feet, encountering strong turbulence again. 1000 hours. We are crossing over the small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth. 1005 hours. I alter altitude to 1,400 feet and execute a sharp turn to better examine the valley below. It is green with either moss or a type of knit grass. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be a large animal of some kind below us. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible. Yet there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp. 1030 hours. Encountering more rolling green hills now. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing on our heading now. Navigation instruments seem normal now. I am puzzled over their actions. Attempting to contact base camp. Radio is not functioning. 1130 hours. Countryside below is more level and normal, if I may use that word. Ahead we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible. Aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God. Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are dish-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings on them. It's a type of swastika. This is fantastic. Where are we? What has happened? I tug at the controls again. They will not respond. We are caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. 1135 hours. Our radio crackles and a voice comes through in English with what is perhaps a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral, you are in good hands." I note the engines of our plane have stopped running. The aircraft is under some strange control and is now turning itself. The controls are useless. 1140 hours. Another radio message received. We begin the landing process now, and in moments the plane shudders slightly and begins a descent as though caught in some great unseen elevator. The downward motion is negligible, and we touch down with only a slight jolt. 1145 hours. I am making a hasty last entry in the flight log. Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large shimmering city pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons on those approaching. I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply. End log. From this point, I write all the following events here from memory. It defies the imagination and would seem all but madness if it had not happened. The radio man and I are taken from the aircraft, and we are received in a most cordial manner. We were then boarded on a small platform-like conveyance with no wheels. It moves us toward the glowing city with great swiftness. As we approach, the city seems to be made of a crystal material. Soon we arrive at a large building that is a type I have never seen before. It appears to be right out of the design board of Frank Lloyd Wright, or perhaps more correctly, out of a Buck Rogers setting. We are given some type of warm beverage, which tasted like nothing I have ever savored before. It is delicious. After about 10 minutes, two of our wondrous appearing hosts come to our quarters and announce that I am to accompany them. I have no choice but to comply. I leave my radio man behind, and we walk a short distance and enter into what seems to be an elevator. We descend downward for some moments. The machine stops and the door lifts suddenly upward. We then proceed down a long hallway that is lit by a rose-colored light that seems to be emanating from the very walls themselves. One of the beings motions for us to stop before a great door. Over the door is an inscription that I cannot read. The great door slides noiselessly open, and I am beckoned to enter. One of my hosts speaks. "Have no fear, Admiral. You are to have an audience with the Master." I step inside, and my eyes adjust to the beautiful coloration that seems to be filling the room completely. Then I begin to see my surroundings. What greeted my eyes is the most beautiful sight of an entire existence. It is in fact too beautiful and wondrous to describe. It is exquisite and delicate. I do not think there exists a human term that can describe it in any detail with justice. My thoughts are interrupted in a cordial manner by a warm, rich voice of melodious quality. "I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral." I see a man with delicate features and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. "We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral." Surface world. I half gasped under my breath. "Yes," the Master replies with a smile. "You are in the domain of the Ariani, the inner world of Earth. We shall not long delay your mission, and you will be safely escorted back to the surface and for a distance beyond. But now, Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugelrads, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is of course past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely, that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral." I interrupted, "But what does this have to do with me, sir?" The Master's eyes seemed to penetrate deeply into my mind, and after studying me for a few moments he replied, "Your race has reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it." I nodded, and the Master continued, "In 1945 and afterward, We tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility, and our Flugelrads were fired upon. Yes, even pursued with malice and animosity by your fighter planes. So now, I say to you, my son, there is a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answer in your arms. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage on until every flower of your culture is trampled, and all human things are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war was only a prelude of what is yet to come for your race. We here see it more clearly with each hour. Do you say I am mistaken? No, I answer. It happened once before. The Dark Ages came and they lasted for more than 500 years. Yes, my son, replied the Master. The Dark Ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall. But I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures, and they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help you revive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then, you will have learned the futility of war and its strife, and after that time, certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. With these closing words, our meeting seemed at an end. I stood for a moment as in a dream, but yet I knew this was reality, and for some strange reason, I bowed slightly, either out of respect or humility, I do not know which. Suddenly, I was again aware that the two beautiful hosts who had brought me here were again at my side. This way, Admiral, mentioned one. I turned once more before leaving and looked back toward the Master. A gentle smile was etched on his delicate and ancient face. Farewell, my son, he spoke. Then he gestured with a lovely slender hand a motion of peace, and our meeting was truly ended. Quickly, we walked back through the great door of the Master's chamber and once again entered into the elevator. The door slid silently downward, and we were once again going upward. One of my hosts spoke again. We must now make haste, Admiral, as the Master desires to delay you no longer on your scheduled timetable, and you must return with his message to your race. I said nothing. All of this was almost beyond belief, and once again my thoughts were interrupted as we stopped. I entered the room and was again with my radio man. He had an anxious expression on his face. As I approached, I said, "It is all right, Howie. It is all right." The two beings motioned us toward the awaiting conveyance. We boarded and soon arrived back at the aircraft. The engines were idling and we boarded immediately. The whole atmosphere seemed charged now with a certain air of urgency. After the cargo door was closed, the aircraft was immediately lifted by that unseen force until we reached an altitude of 2,700 feet. Two of the aircraft were alongside for some distance, guiding us on our return way. I must state here, the airspeed indicator registered no reading, yet we were moving along at a very rapid rate. Entry flight log continues. 0215 hours. A radio message comes through. We are leaving you now, Admiral. Your controls are free. Auf Wiedersehen. We watched for a moment as the Flugelrads disappeared into the pale blue sky. The aircraft suddenly felt as though caught in a sharp downdraft for a moment. We quickly recovered her control. We do not speak for some time. Each man has his thoughts. 0220 hours. We are again over the vast areas of ice and snow, approximately 27 minutes from base camp. We radio them, they respond. We report all conditions normal. Base camp expresses relief at our re-established contact. 0300 hours. We land smoothly at base camp. I have a mission. End log entries. March 11, 1947. I have just attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon. I have stated fully my discovery and the message from the Master. All is duly recorded. The President has been advised. I am now detained for several hours. 6 hours, 39 minutes to be exact. I am interviewed by top security forces and a medical team. It was an ordeal. I am placed under strict control via the national security provisions of the United States of America. I am ordered to remain silent in regard to all that I have learned on behalf of humanity. Incredible. I am reminded that I am a military man and I must obey orders. Now, the long night begins to approach, but there shall be no end. Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again, and those who are of darkness shall fall in its light. For I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, United States Navy, December 24th, 1956.
In the book The Smoky God, Olaf Jansen tells the story of he and his father's trip into the land deep into the north, where the trees were as tall as mountains, where the men were as tall as trees. The ancient civilization far advanced from ours, in a world far away from ours. Olaf and his father, in a similar fashion, received warm hospitality in kind to the same hospitality received from Admiral Byrd during his trip into the very same pole. Did Admiral Byrd and Olaf Jansen meet the same civilization?
Agarians, or Agartians, a group of Asiatic or Nordic humans who, sources claim, discovered a vast system of caverns below the region of the Gobi Desert and surrounding areas thousands of years ago, and have since established a thriving kingdom within, one which has been interacting with other planetary systems up until current times. Alpha Draconians, reptilian beings who are said to have established colonies in Alpha Draconis. Like all reptilians, these claim to have originated on Terra thousands of years ago, a fact that they used to justify their attempt to retake the Earth for their own. They are apparently a major part of a planned invasion which is eventually turning from covert infiltration mode to overt invasion mode as the window of opportunity, the time span before international human society becomes an interplanetary and interstellar power, slowly begins to close. They are attempting to keep the window open by suppressing advanced technology from the masses, which would lead to eventual Terran colonization of other planets by Earth and an eventual solution to the population, pollution, food and other environmental problems. Being that Terrans have an inbred warrior instinct, the Draconians do not want us to attain interstellar capabilities and therefore become a threat to their imperialistic agendas. Refer to Els. Altarians, alleged reptilian inhabitants of the Altair stellar system in the constellation Aquila, in collaboration with a smaller Nordic human element and a collaborative Grey and Terran military presence. Headquarters of a collective known as the Corporate, which maintains ties with the Ashtar and Draconian collectives, Draconian, Ashtar Command. Amphibians, similar to the saurians or reptiloids, yet being hominoid creatures with reptilian as well as amphibian-like features and are semi-aquatic in nature. May have once lived on land, yet became more aquatic over the centuries. They have been encountered near swampy regions, rivers, etc., and have been known to attack people without being provoked. It is interesting that some types of greys and reptiloids are believed to be semi-aquatic, having webbed fingers and toes. Anakim, also referred to the Els, short for elder race or simply as the Giants. Referred to in ancient Hebrew tradition, this race is allegedly tied in with a branch of ancient humans who broke off from mainstream humanity because of their vast size which had developed over the centuries, possibly as a result of a genetic anomaly. They are said to range anywhere from 9 to 11 feet and in some cases even 12 feet in height, although in configuration they are remarkably similar to international humans. Are said to possess a means of molecular condensing and expansion which allows some of their kind to mingle among humans on the surface. They have allegedly been encountered in deep and extensive cavern systems below the western part of North America, as far north as Alaska, as far south as Mexico, and as far east as Texas. They are believed to have interstellar traveling capabilities. Andromedans. The Andromedan Council has ordered all extraterrestrial presences on the planet, in the planet, and on the moon to be completely out of our space. They want everything that's ET, benevolent or not, off the planet. This will be very interesting since there are over 1,833 reptilians living in our planet and over 18,000 greys living underground and on the moon. The Council would like to see how we will live with each other when we are not being manipulated by ETs, as we have been for the last 5,723 years. Anunnaki. Nimrod was a worshipper of Anu. Nimrod, unlike Abraham, did not believe in an unseen deity. Nimrod wanted Abraham to worship Anu, the Most High, known as Elon Elon-El. Nimrod was the founder of the city of Babylon, and his most renowned architectural influence was the construction of the Tower of Babel. Nimrod also had a city named in honor of Anu. It was to be called Calneh or Calneh, Genesis 10:10, meaning fortress of Anu. It used to be an ancient city in Babylon, Mesopotamia. Calneh is often associated with Nippur, which is one of the 7 cities that was inhabited by the agreeable Anunnaki. Nippur was also known as Kodesh. It was originally called Nibruki, meaning earthplace of Nibiru. It was the city of Enlil, the Anunnaki Elohim, son of Anu and Antum. Not only was Calneh one of Nimrod's cities, there was Babel or Babylon, the ancient site and capital of Babylon near the Euphrates. Erech, a city 40 miles northwest of Ur, toward Babylon on the left bank of the Euphrates, and Akkad or Akkad, a city in North Babylon, and a part of the district around it are all a part of the land of Shinar, called by many the country of 2 rivers, literally meaning plains of the flatlands. In the land of Shinar, today called Iraq, is the place where the ancient Sumerians came to set up an advanced civilization where you'd find pictograph cuneiform writings. Excerpted from the Spell of Leviathan 666, Spell of King U, by Dr. Malachi Z. York. Antarctican. This is allegedly a secret area of operations for both human and reptilian beings. It is said by some that Aryan Nazi scientists actually developed disc-shaped aircraft capable of very advanced aerial performance, and that swastikas have been seen on a few aerial discs. They may be piloted by a purebred blonde, blue-eyed Aryan race. There appears to be more than one blonde human society involved in the UFO scenarios, and especially subterranean human societies may have developed blonde hair due to lack of sunlight. There does not seem to be anything more than a peripheral connection between the Antarcticans, the Telosian and the Pleiadian blondes. That is, we will refer to the Antarcticans as the Aryans, the Telosians as the blondes, and the Pleiadians as the Nordics in order to discourage confusion. The Antarcticans may consist largely of batch-consigned purebred blue-eyed, blonde Aryans who became victims of Hitler's obsession to create a super race, and as suggested by Harbinson and others, most of these may be controlled through mind manipulation and implants, being human drones who are used to keep this hidden society functioning. A massive joint, humanoid reptiloid underground system called the New Berlin is said to lie below the mountains of Neschwimland, Antarctica. It is said by some sources that this joint human alien force has spread terror through this sector of the galaxy, conquering and committing untold atrocities against the peaceful inhabitants of other worlds. The famous abductee Barney Hill, who along with his wife Betty was abducted by Zeta Reticulum Greys in 1961, stated under aggressive hypnosis that he had encountered an evil-eyed German Nazi working with the Greys on board the craft. It is claimed that the original treaty with the Greys was established by the Bavarian Thule and Illuminati societies as early as 1933, and this collaboration was brought into America via the CIA, which was established with the help of American Nazi Fifth Column agents as well as European Nazis who were brought into America through Project Paperclip and other operations. Antares, alien group that was affiliated with the Montauk Project, but only as observers. They look human. Arcturians. Arcturus is one of the most advanced civilizations in our entire galaxy. Edgar Cayce. Further information here. Atlans. These are humans, usually described as being benevolent by comparison to other groups, who are said to inhabit vast and complex cavern cities beneath southern Brazil and surrounding regions. The term Atlantean or Atlan in reference to these races, has been placed upon them because of the fact that these cavern networks along the east coast of Brazil were reportedly once a part of the antediluvian Atlantean Empire. The present inhabitants have no direct genetic relation to the ancient Atlantean society which is said to have controlled these cavern systems several millennia ago, but are referred to as Atlanteans simply because they are descendants of those who rediscovered and inhabited the ancient Atlan installations. As in North America and other continents, both common and gnome-like humans have been encountered here, some of which possessed advanced aerial or disc technology. The Telosians claim to have some connections with South America, especially the Mato Grosso region where a sister city named Posid exists in a large cavern system underground.
The Norb theory provides an entirely new perspective to the term outer space. The model here shows how planets are actually other suns or major luminaries in other parts of the undiscovered world. For example, the sun and moon are the dominant luminaries on Earth or in our realm. But in lands far away, planets act as the sun or celestial sphere. Now think about that and think about the rotation of the luminaries and the rotation of the constellations. I saw a similar model a few years back. This guy had what looked like an 8th grade science project. It was a model of the world similar to what we saw with the Norb theory, and he explained it very well. Just like the Norb theory, there are some things that I didn't 100% agree with. But that's okay because we're not supposed to agree on everything. We are supposed to be consistently working toward truth. We can combine our intelligence and the things we have passion for. We combine the best parts of the intent of our work, and we can acquire a greater understanding. So when I first saw the video, I was impressed with this middle school science project, even if it was made by a grown man. I was just proud of somebody who had spent the time to build a model. And then the Norb theory took it to the next level. The top-notch graphics explain things clearly that may not otherwise be effectively articulated. Although it is just a theory, the ball is rolling intelligently. These models and mock-ups are expanding our mind into what the universe really is. As I am standing outside making this recording, I am staring at the sun and at the moon at the same time. And it is 3:26 p.m. The book of Ezra says there will be a time when the sun starts shining by night and the moon by day. Looks like we're halfway there.
There has been historic documentation of werewolves, aliens, beastmen, animal-beast hybrids, satyrs, and giants. Many ancient peoples of ancient civilizations have claimed lineage to these animalistic creatures and gods. The main symbol of these gods is the swastika, which according to Admiral Byrd was found all around the technology and disc-shaped plains of the so-called North Pole. Yet people have decided to write it off as being fairy tales. Even those who believe in the Hebrew Bible have written this off as pure ludicrousy. Isn't it funny how the same people who teach us so much truth can be used to keep the rest of it dormant? So why are these fanciful concoctions that were made up by two drunk men who simply gazed at the stars 1,000 million years ago being referenced so much? Why has the actual creator of the earth, the skies, and the seas being made as a make-believe fabrication along with these other creatures? This inherently places the belief of the creator God of the Hebrews as a choice. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, pick your flavor. It's all fake anyway. All that does is give people the feel of rooting for their favorite sports team. It's my piece of rock versus yours. Controlled opposition, Hegelian dialectic. Of course, the best way to hide the truth is to keep it in plain sight. Have many opposing sides, mix the truth with the right amount of lies, and voila, you have a world of contention. The work of finding the hidden truth is a tedious task, to say the least, for someone who doesn't have hints. It would be like trying to solve a 1 million piece puzzle with most of the pieces almost fitting. When people get far into this puzzle and realize that they may have input the wrong piece a while back, most are not willing to go back and start over from scratch. However, in these last days, the true power of the universe has given the pathway to the truth to a select group of men and women. All they have to do is follow the stream. When you take into account the possible validity of all of these creatures, along with other texts explaining their possible origin, it makes a lot more sense who truly are the ones who are ruling this earth. It makes more sense as to who were the ones who altered the Hebrew Bible to take out many things pertaining to these creatures. It makes more sense why the Creator wanted certain nations of people destroyed off the earth. After men from Adam's seed line decided to procreate with these creatures as a big FU to the Creator for their own disobedience and crimes, He commanded that the Israelites wipe these people off the earth. Of course, these creatures are still here. They are your next door neighbors. They are your teachers. They are your senators. They are your favorite scientists. They are your presidents and leaders of your country. They are the chiefs of your tribes. They are in part the small hats that no one can even mention on YouTube. They could even be you. But this is why a certain man was sent here. For the most part, he came because of the disobedience of the Israelites. However, he is giving all nations a chance to turn themselves in. In the next video, we will examine the creation of human sacrifice, how these creatures survived the Great Flood, and more of them and their effect through history. Until next time, the meek shall inherit the earth. Stay humble, unforgotten prince of the Isle of the Sea.